Chapter 8: Food Addictions, Fears and Subconscious Drivers. So far we have acknowledged the many harms of meat eating. Let's now move on to explore how we can move away from this habit. There can be many reasons why we may crave animal products in our diet, and the good news is that we can eliminate such cravings. Understanding what is limiting us in overcoming cravings and addictions is a major step in overcoming these limitations. So, let's investigate various limiting factors. Conscious and subconscious drivers for eating animal products. Let's start by looking at our minds. We have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind contains information that we are aware of, such as our name, the names of our animal family members, and what day of the week it is. The subconscious mind contains information that we aren't aware of. People often use the metaphor of an iceberg to describe our conscious and subconscious mind. The ice above the water, that which we can see, represents the conscious mind. The ice below the water represents the subconscious mind. Many limiting beliefs, attitudes, and outlooks reside in the subconscious. This is important to acknowledge because the subconscious mind is a major driver of our behavior. According to Dr. Bruce Lipton, author of the book The Wisdom of Your Cells, quote, 95% to 99% of our daily behaviors are operated by our unconscious mind, end quote, and, quote, our subconscious is 1 million times more powerful than our conscious mind, end quote. It has been observed that many of the subconscious beliefs that we have are negative and or self-sabotaging. This can make it difficult to achieve goals. It can affect every aspect of our lives, such as communication, relationships, our careers, etc. And it can also influence the types of food that we wish to eat. Betzke K. Burr is the founder of a system of coaching called Power Coaching with Mind Kinetics. This is an advanced coaching technique that surpasses current coaching as we know it today. I refer to it as coaching of the future. The method that she has developed has effective ways of quickly accessing and understanding the subconscious mind, as well as techniques to reprogram our limiting subconscious beliefs. Betzke has assisted many clients to achieve goals, increase emotional intelligence, and break unwanted habits. In her work and research involving thousands of people from over 50 countries, Betzke has observed that there are two major reasons why people may struggle with adopting and maintaining a vegan diet. The two major reasons that she has identified are fear, and the number one subconscious belief that she has identified is I don't love myself enough to look after myself. Let's explore further to understand how these might be limiting us. I don't love myself enough to look after myself. Some people are only too aware of the overly critical self-talk and judgment that they experience. There are regrets, worries, shame, self-blame, past traumas, embarrassment, disappointment, grief, so many deep emotions. And all this is overlaid with the stresses of modern-day living. Much of the advertising in our world is designed to make us feel like we aren't good enough, and that to achieve happiness, we should purchase what is advertised, such as expensive beauty products, designer clothes, and other items. Movies, TV shows, and even songs from pop artists can carry low-level vibrations that directly and negatively affect our emotional state. These different factors can influence our behavior and the choices that we make. They can make us feel bad about ourselves. And of course, all of this can be made worse by eating low-vibration foods, such as meat, fish, dairy, and eggs, that bring in the trauma and suffering vibration of the deceased beings. We are being influenced on so many levels, and we need to become aware of the influences so that we may loosen their grip on us. We can become more assertive consumers of media. We can choose what to watch and what to listen to. We can start to observe how different shows, actors, songs, social media contacts, etc. affect us. And we can choose whether we want to keep exposing ourselves to their influence. When we lack self-love, our ability to listen and hear other people is often diminished. We may not have the capacity to cope with listening to their struggles when we are struggling so much ourselves. As animal communicators, this may affect the messages that we receive. If we aren't able to cope with messages from agricultural animals who are suffering, then there's a good chance that we won't hear them. At a subconscious level, we may block them out. Another powerful way of valuing ourselves more is to develop self-compassion. Dr. Kristin Neff is a world pioneer and researcher of self-compassion. She has said that there are 3 components of self-compassion, which are, quote, self-kindness as opposed to self-judgment. A lot of times when we suffer, we just take a very cold attitude toward ourselves. So self-compassion involves being warm and supportive, actively soothing ourselves as opposed to being cold and judging ourselves. The second part is remembering that imperfection is part of the shared human experience, that you're not alone in your suffering. Often when something goes wrong, we look in the mirror and we don't like what we see. We feel very isolated in that moment, as if everyone else has these perfect lives and it's just us who's flawed and defective. When we remember that imperfection is part of the shared human experience, you can actually feel more connected to people in those moments. The third component is mindfulness. If you aren't mindfully aware that you're suffering, if you're just repressing your pain or ignoring it or getting lost in problem solving, you can't give yourself compassion. You have to say, wait a second, this hurts. This is really hard. This is a moment when I need compassion. If you don't want to go there, if it's too painful or you're just too busy to go there, you can't be compassionate. End quote. Dr. Kristin Neff is the author of several books, including Self-Compassion and Self-Compassion Step by Step. Her website, self-compassion.org, has resources and tips that many might find to be very useful. Her speeches are also very powerful. So, where do we start with being compassionate with ourselves? The following article that appeared in an Australian Vegans publication gives us tips on this. Quote, pause for a moment and think about the thoughts that go around your mind during the day. Thoughts such as, I am such an idiot, I should have known better. I'll never be good at this. Why do I even bother? I knew I wouldn't be able to. I can't believe I forgot that. It was so important. I'm a total screw-up. These are examples of times when showing a little bit of self-compassion would go a long way. When you think about it, most of us wouldn't talk to our family and friends this way. So why speak to ourselves like this? And this thinking certainly isn't productive. Scientists have found that being so self-critical can make us even more emotional and makes it harder to bounce back from failure. Self-compassion, on the other hand, has been found to make us more emotionally resilient, helping us to view failures as opportunities for growth and helping to improve performance after a failure. It is considered to be a skill for overcoming stress. And the good news is that self-compassion can be learned. To become more self-compassionate, firstly, try to become more mindful. Start paying attention to the thoughts that you have about yourself, your performance, your self-worth, and your abilities. When you have a thought such as, "I'm such an idiot," pause for a second and take a deep breath. Recognize that this is a moment when you are not practicing self-compassion. Remember that you are human. We all make mistakes. Breathe. Next, when you have these critical thoughts about yourself, then ask yourself, if my friend or family member came to me because they were upset about this same issue, what would I say to them? Would you tell them that they are an idiot? I would like to think not. Often we are our own worst critic. If the words that you would say to your friend are kind and caring, then say these same words to yourself. Alternatively, you could think of a kind-natured person that you know, and the wise words that this person would bestow upon you in your particular situation. Allow the words to filter through and accept them. Let them settle. Breathe. Practicing self-compassion can feel a bit strange at first. It can be almost like exercising a muscle that you haven't used for a while. It can feel almost as though you are making excuses for yourself. But persevere. Given some time and more self-compassion, you'll be surprised to notice the changes in yourself. Will you be less affected by daily trials? Is your mood more stable? Does your performance at work improve? Are you better able to manage your team? Does your family notice that you are often in a better mood when you get home? Do your pets notice your contentment and like to snuggle with you more? Give it a try and see. End quote. I extend thanks to Australian vegans for granting kind permission to include this article. To read other insightful articles from the publication for free, please visit australianvegans.com.au/read-online. When we are in a state of self-judgment, shame, loneliness, and despair, it can be easy to reach out and eat whatever food is in front of us. And because like attracts like, we might crave foods with the same low vibration as our own thoughts, specifically those animal-derived foods that have the vibration of suffering within them. Practicing self-compassion can help with returning to a more peaceful state and helping us to be more resilient so that we can have more control over our food choices and cravings. We can also work with someone qualified to help us develop more self-compassion and self-love. This may be a Mind Kinetics power coach, or a psychologist, holistic counselor, or psychotherapist, for example. Now let's turn our attention to some of the fears that Betska K. Burr has discovered are limiting us and our ability to make positive change. Fear of not getting enough protein. When getting information on protein, one must obtain information from an unbiased and well-researched source. For many health and nutrition professionals, their studies don't adequately cover vegan diets. They may be biased by lack of education, and they can be biased by attitudes, assumptions, habits, and misinformation that has been directed at them. This is why we need to educate ourselves on the topic of protein in a comprehensive manner. So, let's dive in. A healthy vegan diet that is adequate in calories provides all the protein we need. Protein helps to build tissue in the body, repair body tissue, and maintain body tissue. Why is plant protein superior? There's so much research that shows that by cutting out animal protein, we lower our overall risk of death from all causes. Research shows that healthy plant-based diets help to reduce death from heart disease and death due to chronic disease. Protein isn't a single nutrient in a food, it's part of a package. And plant-based foods offer a lot of health benefits over meat due to other factors such as the presence of phytonutrients or plant nutrients, and phytochemicals, which are beneficial compounds naturally occurring in plants. It's interesting to learn why so many people misunderstand protein. Biased research from the outset has led to wrong information being shared. The first protein recommendations were made based on assuming what people would eat if they could. In the 1800s, the amount of recommended protein in the USA was 189 grams daily. This is over 3 times the current recommendations. It's important to note that excess protein can cause problems, such as constipation and bloating, which can lead to a host of other issues: weight gain in the abdominal area, brain fog, kidney strain, and kidney disorders, bad breath, etc. In 1913, researchers then based their protein recommendations on rats instead of humans. They fed rats and decided that rats did better on meat diets, and hence incorrectly classified animal protein as superior and plant protein as inferior for humans. Can you see the problem here? Basing human protein recommendations on rat physiology is problematic because we are not rats. Baby rats grow a lot faster than humans, and so it's thought that they have a higher protein requirement due to this. Rat milk is 11 times higher in protein than human breast milk, and rats grow from baby to adults in only 5 short months. Then the notion of incomplete proteins was put forward in the book Diet for a Small Planet by Frances Moore Lappy, 1970. Her book stated that vegetarians, and by extension vegans, needed to combine foods to get all the amino acids in suitable amounts. However, modern science stated that this is incorrect. Although her intentions were noble, the author has apologized for presenting incorrect dietary information. As a sociologist, she shared a lot of accurate information in her book, which largely outlined that a veg diet can help to end world hunger. We've also become aware of our mistaken knowledge surrounding what ancient people ate. For example, the gladiators from ancient Greece were predominantly vegan. They were known as the barley men, and barley and beans featured heavily in their diets. Modern science and millions of vegans worldwide tells us that we get all the protein that we need from a vegan diet, providing sufficient calories. There are also top-ranking athletes competing at the highest levels and following vegan diets. They report that this has improved athletic performance, and many state that the vegan diet has shortened their recovery times and allowed them to work out more. For a complete overview of protein, please refer to Chapter 11, which focuses on plant-based nutrition. Also, I encourage you to read the protein section of the Physicians' Committee for Responsible Medicine. I also highly recommend that you watch the movie, The Game Changers. The film features strongman Patrick Baboumian, who is a committed vegan. He holds records such as the world record for yoke walk in 2015, where he carried 560 kilograms, or 1,234.6 pounds of weight. The next fear is fear people will think I'm weird and reject me personally and professionally. This reminds me of a poem by Marianne Williamson. In her book, A Return to Love, the last stanza of the poem, Our Deepest Fear, reads as follows, quote, "And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same." As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." End quote. We can think of the kind of person we want to be and the kind of leader we wish to be. Do we want to lead with kindness and compassion? Do we want to be a positive example for others? We can focus on what we want to be and detach from what other people might think about us. If we are feeling a little shy or nervous about our diet, then we can remind ourselves why we eat a plant-based diet in the first place. Many people adopt a vegan lifestyle for the well-being of animals and the planet. These are strong motivations. Many people also do this for health reasons, and they become great examples and inspiration for other people. If we approach the situation with love, compassion, and detachment, then we are setting a wonderful example for others and living our truth. We are also helping to bring change to the planet and being a voice for the animals. When shared lovingly, people may be grateful for this information. An example that comes to mind is animal communicator Rosina Maria Aquati. I saw an interview with her years ago, and it has always impressed and stuck with me about how candid she is about her vegan diet. During the interview, she explained that she discusses the vegan lifestyle during her animal communication workshops. This does a few things. It gives students information that can set them on a path that will benefit them personally and spiritually. If they choose to follow a plant-based diet, this might further develop their animal communication and intuitive skills. If they choose to adopt a plant-based diet, this is a way that they may be of deeper service to the animals. Rosina's website has a link to a vegan association and another link for vegan peace. Her website states, quote, "Although Rosina is a vegan, she would not force others to eat a plant-based diet. She hopes humans change from their hearts and let their conscience decide which kind of diet to eat. Then, such a change would be long-term." End quote. I also noticed that when Rosina is featured in the media, her vegan lifestyle is often mentioned. For example, in the Zeus Times, the article states, quote, "Like many internationally renowned animal communicators, Rosina is a vegan. Veganism is a more compassionate and respectful lifestyle for our animal friends. Being vegan means not eating any meat, eggs, or milk." End quote. When interviewed for a newspaper about puppy mills, the author also included information to say that Rosina is a vegan. Quote, "Animal testing is one of the worst types of cruelty. It is not only done on rats, but dogs and cats as well," she, Maria, said. The strict vegan urged people to start reading labels on the back of products to see how they were produced. End quote. If we share this information with compassion, kindness, and detachment, then we are simply being honest about a very important and timely topic. This information is directly related to animals, and thus is related to animal communication. There are people in unrelated industries who also share this message, such as athletes, actors, singers, and more. By stating this information, it's important to note that we are not judging others. We are in no way saying that we are better than them. We are all learning people. We can all learn so much from each other. There is a need to speak the truth, especially when speaking the truth means the difference between thriving or suffering for the animals and the planet. People who adopt vegan and vegetarian diets will tell you how grateful they are to have discovered the information that led to their compassionate lifestyle. Hence, I encourage you to be honest with this information. Share this information gently and with compassion, love, and detachment. fear of getting sick from lack of nutrients. It's important to realize that there are vested interests in keeping people fearful of this. This fear is perpetuated by the media, the livestock industry, uninformed medical professionals, uninformed mental health professionals, uninformed natural health practitioners, including naturopaths, Chinese and Ayurvedic doctors, dietitians, and nutritionists. It's important to get the correct health advice from someone who has done the proper research. This quite often means seeking out someone who has taken the time and initiative to do their own research. Unfortunately, the nutrition information being taught by most institutions is largely outdated. The curriculum is also affected by politics and industry bias. A dietitian once told me that her professional association was sponsored by Nestlé. It's worth noting that Australian dietitians must be part of a professional association to practice. The Dietitians Association of Australia is also sponsored by Meat and Livestock Australia, Dairy Australia, and the Egg Nutrition Council. In addition, this association hired a spokesperson paid by Coca-Cola to present misinformation on sugar and obesity. The American Dietetic Association also has conflicts of interest through sponsorship by industries that put profit over health. You can read an investigative report by Michelle Simon. The report is available at foodpolitics.com. The report is called "And Now a Word from Our Sponsors." Hence, it's pertinent to point out that these industries also have strong ties to the pharmaceutical industry. How? Because livestock animals require pharmaceutical intervention. Due to the unnatural, stressful, and overcrowded conditions that they are forced to live in, sickness is largely inevitable in these animals. Consider that up to 70% of the total amount of antibiotics produced is used by the livestock industry. This is despite a plethora of professionals citing antibiotic resistance as one of the 5 greatest health threats facing the USA. These industries have a lot of money to sway people to act and speak on their behalf. They have a lot of money to invest in advertising to continue to influence people. And they profit from the livestock industry continuing to function. Thus, it is a mistake to think that your doctor, even a natural doctor, is aware of the extensive research and benefits that a whole food vegan diet brings, unless they have specifically studied this with reputable educators. These include the E. Cornell Plant-Based Nutrition Certificate Program and Doctors for Nutrition, among others. They may also have read books by the growing number of health experts that advocate for a whole food vegan diet. Let's now revisit that people have active biases and vested interests against plant-based diets. Here are 2 examples that I've experienced where the public was not honestly informed of facts. The first example comes from a speech that was presented at a conference. I remember listening to a speech by the then president of the Vegetarian Association. He had agreed to be featured on a mainstream TV show, along with 2 other individuals who would have their diets compared, and he told us about this experience. Part of the show format included taking blood samples and checking blood test results of these show participants. When the hosts checked the blood test results for the omnivore, who was the only person of the 3 who included meat in their diet, they found that he was low in iron. But this wasn't the case for the other 2 people featured, a vegan and a vegetarian. Take a guess. Do you think the TV show aired the footage showing that the only meat eater was anemic? No, they did not. I do wonder why this was the case. Was there a hidden agenda? Was it because of personal bias? Was it because of marketing interests? Did the show producers want to maintain stereotypes? We'll never know the complete story. I do know that when I was a teenager, I got a glimpse into the media world when I took part in a mentorship program with a large national newspaper. I learned that if a well-written story doesn't comply with the views of the advertiser, then the story isn't published. This is a large reason why I didn't pursue journalism as a career. The second example comes from the prestigious Garvan Institute of Medical Research. I was fortunate enough to interview a researcher there. His team conducted a study where the bone density levels of vegan Buddhist nuns were compared to non-vegan Western women. The nuns had a lower intake of calcium, about 370 milligrams per day, and a lower protein intake. However, their bone density was found to be essentially the same, a little bit less, but not statistically significant. But for weeks afterwards, I saw headlines that misconstrued the research. Headlines such as, "Vegan diet leads to less dense bones," and other headlines such as, "Vegetarian diet weakens bones." The articles cited this research as their source of information. I saw an article by a dairy company stating that this research showed that a lack of dairy weakens the bones. It was a gross misrepresentation of the research. This was not how the lead researcher described the findings to me. Fortunately, some media did represent the research accurately. The Science Daily featured the headline, "Vegan Buddhist nuns have same bone density as non-vegetarians." This is how the lead researcher described the findings to me. This article features the following quote by the lead researcher, Professor Tuan Nguyen. Quote, "In this work, we showed that although the vegans studied do indeed have a lower protein and calcium intake, their bone density is virtually identical to that of people who eat a wide variety of foods." End quote. The important thing to realize is that the media and corporations intentionally mislead us. Even one biased or incorrect headline is damaging. Many people scroll through social media, glancing at headlines, but not reading the entire article. Regarding dairy, here is a very honest quote from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2009. Quote, "Although cow milk has been widely recommended in Western countries as necessary for growth and bone health, evidence collected during the past 20 years shows the need to rethink strategies for building and maintaining strong bones. Osteoporotic bone fracture rates are highest in countries that consume the most dairy, calcium, and animal protein. Most studies of fracture risk provide little or no evidence that milk or other dairy products benefit bone. Accumulating evidence shows that consuming milk or dairy products may contribute to the risk of prostate and ovarian cancers, autoimmune diseases, and some childhood ailments." End quote. Based on all of this, I urge you to consult with reputable sources for health information and advice. There are now databases of plant-based doctors and health professionals available in different countries. For example, Plant-Based Docs from the USA, which allows people to search for plant-based healthcare providers. There are similar websites in different countries. One profound thing to be aware of is that diseased animals end up on people's plates. The animal agriculture industry is very lax at checking for things like cancerous tumours in meat. If you research this in more depth, I'm confident that your fear won't be about a lack of nutrients, but would transform into a fear of eating diseased and animal-derived products. Below is an excerpt from the book Through the Eyes of a Cow by animal communicator and barefoot veterinarian Dr. Jody Ruckley. Dr. Ruckley travelled to various countries around the world and spoke to cows and calves who were in the animal agriculture system. This is what one cow shared with her. Quote, "They treat me like a producing machine, but I have a big heart, bigger than the hearts of the men that work here. I give lots of milk every day, but I receive no love or respect. I have a serious disease. I have needed medicine for a long time, and believe me, the farmers know this. But all the days I continue to give milk that can cause problems for humans. I have cancer of the lymphatics. From the outside you can see that I limp. It's the degeneration of my leg. The cancer affects my bones and my blood. I want people to stop drinking my milk because it is poison." End quote. The cow also says, quote, "I am 8 years old and I have lots of knowledge. You know what to do when the farmer is angry so less bad things happen. You must lower your head and not look at him. It's better to stay invisible and walk quickly, then perhaps he will not use the stick. They shout a lot and bash us on the bone of our hips with the stick. When they are happy, there is no love. They make noises kindly and then we can relax, but they never say thank you or ask how we are." End quote. I would like to point out that this cow was in a small dairy operation where the conditions are much better than those faced by cows in large dairy operations. Yet it seems that she still wasn't given the necessary health treatment or any sense of gratitude or extra kindness due to her physical condition. What a remarkable cow. We know that bovine or cow leukemia is in beef and dairy products that are sold in stores. Countries with the highest intake of milk also have the highest incidences of breast cancer. It's thought that 9 out of 10 cow herds in the USA have this disease. Humans have been tested and found to have antibodies to cow leukemia, which shows that we are exposed to it. Even more alarming is that the DNA of the cow leukemia virus has been found in human breast tissue of women who have breast cancer. Yes, you heard that correctly. We have a major lead into the cause of a life or death disease, yet we don't read this in newspaper headlines. I think you understand why. Dairy cows also experience other severe challenges to their health. Consider that, quote, "Cows have a natural lifespan of about 20 years and can produce milk for 8 or 9 years. However, the stress caused by the conditions on factory farms leads to disease, lameness, and reproductive problems that render cows worthless to the dairy industry by the time that they're 4 or 5 years old, at which time they are sent to be slaughtered." And young male cows slaughtered for veal are intentionally kept anemic so that their flesh will be a light colour when eaten. I recall an interview that I read years ago with the late B.D. Carmody, who ran a sanctuary called A Poultry Place in Australia. He described how chickens and other birds that are rescued from factory farms come to him malnourished, and mentioned that their combs are pale due to lack of nutrition. Most chickens are kept in foul conditions, in cages that are stacked upwards. Chickens from the top cages poop on the chickens in the cages below. The chickens can't all access the food equally, and dead chicken bodies are just left to rot amidst the alive, but in no way thriving chickens. Most chickens grow so rapidly nowadays that their legs buckle and break under their body weight, and they are unable to walk. Additionally, over 95% of US chicken is reportedly washed with chlorine in an attempt to kill germs on their deceased bodies. Nowadays, health experts around the world are increasingly worried about zoonoses. These are diseases from animals that jump the species barrier and infect humans. Recent examples of zoonotic diseases are COVID-19 and monkeypox. While there is a lot of political chatter about the Wuhan lab, a group of evolutionary biologists and virologists from various countries concluded that it was a natural zoonotic disease with too many distinct features and counterintuitive features to be man-made. Other scientists agree with this view. While a zoonotic disease has ravaged our world recently, this isn't something new that has occurred. This has repeatedly occurred in human history. Consider the following zoonoses that have affected humankind. Quote, "Zoonotic diseases have been important throughout history and remain one of the world's most important public health challenges. During the 400-year span of the Black Death, the plague Yersinia pestis killed an estimated 50% of the human population in China, 33% in Europe, and 17% in Africa. Approximately 60% of all globally emerging infectious diseases are zoonotic diseases that infect both humans and animals, and 72% originate in wildlife." End quote. Quote, "Common zoonoses of interest include bacterial diseases such as plague, brucellosis, tularemia, anthrax, salmonellosis, and Escherichia coli. Viral diseases such as rabies, West Nile virus, encephalitis, influenza, and hantavirus, and transmissible spongiform encephalopathies, prion diseases, such as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, chronic wasting disease, mad cow, and scrapie. Examples of important zoonotic disease outbreaks include Ebola, avian influenza viruses A H5N6 and A H7N9, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus, and cholera." End quote. Animal-derived foods also contain contaminants, chemicals, bacteria, heavy metals, unhealthy hormones, disease, cancerous tumours, disease-causing prions, fecal contamination, and other sickening matter. Once we understand this, the question becomes, what disease, germs, chemicals, medications, fecal matter, hormones, meat glue, artificial colours, worms or parasites, and genetically modified substances are we eating when we consume livestock products? If we want to eat truly spiritual food, then whole food plant-derived foods are the way to do this. Organic is always best. To further increase the vibrational frequency of our vegan foods, we can also pray that it be blessed and give thanks before eating it. Overcoming fears. We have other fears too when it comes to changing our diets and our habits. But it's important to remember that love is stronger than fear. The main thing is that we look forward, that we educate ourselves, and we anchor ourselves in the reasons why we are making these changes. Once we are clear on our why, then things tend to fall in place more easily, especially if we pray for assistance from divine beings to help us. When we are trying to do something uplifting and noble with so many benefits to so many beings and the planet, there is a host of unseen help that supports us in making this change. We must remember this.